Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How's it going? It's me, Comic Crack. Let me see that Tootsie Roll. Just chewing on Tootsie Roll. Delicious. Love them. Welcome. It's Sunday. No chat again this weekend with Rasa. But we'll hopefully be back next Sunday, which is good because first and foremost, skadoosh, finally, it's in my greasy paws. Kamui, Legend of Kamui, Shirao Sanpei, Volume 1 from Drawn and Quarterly. 600 beefy pages. I'm about 400 pages in already. I love it. It's fantastic. It's different than what I've read from the Eclipse stuff, but I don't want to talk about it too much. I want to wait to talk with Rasa about it. I'm very, very curious to hear her thoughts on this one. I'm so glad that I finally got this in my paws. Yeah, so great. So I guess we'll just jump right in. I guess the other thing to do first here is the filing cabinet that used to be in this corner with magazines is now gone. It took a long time to find a narrow bookshelf that would fit into this space, but I did find one. And now my magazines are accessible. Before, you couldn't really see it before, but it was just boxes stacked up on top of boxes in this corner here. It's narrow enough that I can really get into it and kind of get at magazines. So I love that because the thing that drives me the most nuts, especially since I've moved over to the filing cabinets, the thing that drives me crazy is not being able to get to my collection of stuff, and read stuff and engage with it. I don't want it to just be a storage space. I don't want it to just be boxes piled upon boxes where I got to move 5 things to get to one box and go hunting. I love that it's accessible. I love that I can read it. These ones are the only ones that are not as accessible, but everything is labeled. So that's okay because it's all Eclipse stuff here. But magazines especially, I had so many magazine boxes. It's great to get that stuff out of those boxes because there's stuff I haven't seen for quite a while. Even stuff like I've got a stack of Tintin magazines. I think we've talked about them years ago when I first got them, but now they're out there and I can flip through them again. And, so it's great. It's great having that stuff out there. Little weekend mail call, which was weird. Finally got my Merzstack albums that I ordered from Discogs. Circular Reference is this one. It's a double LP. The label is called No Holiday. And this is the only Merzstack stuff they had. I really loved the paintings on this. None of these paintings are not done by Masami Akita. They're done by another artist. And what I thought was a gatefold, turns out it's only a poster, a small poster. It's still really great, but I thought it was a gatefold. So I love that image so much. Really fantastic. So let's get the proper credits here. Pardon me. The illustrations are by a guy named Mike Sniper. I've heard these albums already digitally. I wrote about them on the Merzstack. For those of you not subscribed to the Merzstack, I understand. But for those of you who might be interested, I am doing a project this year where I'm going to be talking about Merzstack records. There's no schedule. It doesn't cost anything. It's a free Substack. I'm not talking about Merzstack records in any sort of academic sense. I'm talking about them and just enjoying them. And then here's Mikodori from 2024. And again, art by Mike Sniper. There's the front and the back there. I don't think there's any graphics on the inside. No, there isn't. And this one has nice vinyl as well too. So clear with some black streaks on it. So I've been doing that since the beginning of the year. I just posted about the Mers box and a book we'll be talking about today as well. It's a fun project. I don't have any... Hello, Damien. How you doing? I don't have any set schedule on when I'm writing stuff. So I'm just writing it whenever I sit down and I listen to an album, and then I just write whatever comes to my head. I kind of started it as something that I wanted to write about the Merzbow stuff I was listening to, because I planned to do a big dive into his stuff this year, just for my own enjoyment. But I've also, because I've been doing a tiny bit of writing for like Canon and stuff and more interviews than anything, I just feel like it's something that'll be nice to kind of flex that muscle. I've never really been a writer. I've never had much of an interest in it, very, very passing interest in it. But I figure something like this is a good kind of kickstart on it. Yeah, there is on some of the other videos. I'll put a link into this video description here, Damien. Actually, I can probably put it in the chat as well too. So I figured it was just a fun, maybe a fun way to kind of practice writing. I am not a great writer. I am the first to admit that, but honestly, it's been a lot of fun to do. I've been able to engage with his music, his noise in a different way than I have before. Like I said, I'm not writing it from an academic standpoint. I'm writing from it mostly from where it brings me. Some of this experimental and noise music and stuff, there's a lot of inner dialogue and inner film happening to some degree, right? So it takes you on a bit of a journey. So I try to write that down as best as I can. Yeah, so for those of you that are subscribed, I appreciate it. It's nice to have some people engaging. Let's see. So this, okay. What did I want to show you? There was something I thought, oh yeah. I also wanted to turn you on to, we've talked about it before, maybe before we get into comics. So that's the Merzbow stuff. I'll show you, actually, before we end that part, I'll show you it's colored records on this one too. So, I mean, why the hell not? Let's have a look. Let's take our time. There's no rush. If you have somewhere you need to be, by all means. So there's one of the records. And there's the other one there for this double LP. So they did a nice job. Like I said, I don't know much about this No Holiday. It looks like they have a few pretty cool releases on their label. And as with all the stuff that I end up talking about on here, guess where you can find them? You can find them on Bandcamp. I really feel like Bandcamp is a great way to support artists. Especially if you wait for that one Friday a month where all of the proceeds go directly to the artists. I think it's a great way to support people directly. Obviously, an even better way is going right to their websites and buying directly from them. So I was talking about that. And then there's speaking of Merzbow, there's a podcast that I've listened to for a long time called Noisextra. They started off as a Merzbow podcast. They were going to listen to all of his albums and talk about them. Push comes to shove, some of the stuff they were talking about, they got contacted by Masami Akita himself, I believe, and basically said, hey, no thanks. Because I guess some of the stuff that they were talking about, he didn't really want it to be discussed. And that's all I'll say about it. I don't want to, because I don't know the full story. So I don't want to get into kind of gossip and what I'd heard, because my memory is what it is. So either way, they changed their podcast to Noisextra. I was subscribed to them for quite a while, and then it just came to a point where I had to cut some of my subscriptions. But I've since subscribed to them again, and they did a podcast recently where they talked about David Lynch's Eraserhead soundtrack. Really great discussion. That soundtrack is, they talk about it as well. That soundtrack is legendary within kind of like circles of noise, experimental, ambient, whatever you want to label it, industrial. It's such a great, I mean, David Lynch is one of my favorites. Eraserhead is such an important movie to me. but the soundtrack is equally as important. I had the cassette. I gave it to my son, actually, I don't know, a year ago or whatever. Passed it on. It was one of the original cassettes. And I just played it so much. And I remember it making such an impact on me when I first heard it. And then on subsequent listens, especially once I found out that it was Lynch himself that had done the soundtrack, it's really, really exceptional. I mean, that whole movie is unbelievable in a myriad of ways. The fact that they worked on it himself, Lynch himself pretty much was hands-on for almost all of the project. He did have some help, but it really is his hands making the set, painting the floors, everything about it. And it took years to kind of make the film. Sneeze caught. So I'd suggest going to check out Noisextra. They talk to a lot of musicians. They talk about a lot of music. They've had some fantastic interviews over the years. And one of the interviews that they had was with Frans de Waard about his book. It's called, Frans de Waard wrote a book. It's called America's Greatest Noise. It's about RRR Records, Emile Bulliot, and the true sound of love. KORM Plastics is the name of his publishing company. He's written a number of books. I know him from, what is it? Machine Fabrique, I think is what the name of the posts. I think that's what the name of the project is called. Let me just, because I did write about them. It's Capote Music. Sorry, Capote Music is who he was a part of. I never communicated with Ron at RRR. I do have a bunch of CDs from him. I pulled just a few of them. Emile Bulliot, Merzbow loves Emile Bulliot. He released, I think, Merzbow's second ever LP was released on RRR Records, and then he did a bunch of series, the Pure series and things like that. So just a small handful of RRR related albums there. He also did a label called Stomach Ache, which was a classic record label as well. It turned into Dollar, Del Estomago, and Grux from Carolina ended up taking it over. So I've kind of taken out folders of CDs and stuff. So in here, I've got a bunch of RRR CDs as well. Zone Nord. There's a great Noisextra podcast where they talk about Zone Nord. This is an unbelievable CD as far as experimental music goes. So Roferon A is what that album is called. And then got a whole bunch of the Dollar Del Estomago stuff here as well too. Another great label, all sorts of bizarre releases that they've done, reissues. Some of the best ones. They've done a couple of Toy Story. There was one for Monsters, Inc., and there was two for the Toy Story movies. And I think that it might have been someone who was working on the films themselves, doing kind of soundtracks, doing Foley rather, and doing some sound effects and things. So it's the sound effects from those movies onto a CD, and they're incredible listens, to be honest. Very, very underrated. The beauty with some of this stuff that these guys would put out is kind of the lack of information to some degree. Like that mystery of it is always kind of part of the fun of it. You don't really know where these things are coming from. You don't know if it's maybe somebody that's just, pardon me, watching the movie and editing out all of the dialogue and just kind of keeping the sound effects. Now, with the Toy Story and Monsters Inc. ones, it doesn't sound like that's the case because there's long stretches where it's just sound effects. So it feels like it's something that's kind of been on the down low, bootlegged and taken out of the studio to put on a CDR out of Mexico. So this is an unbelievable book. It's a really, really quick read. The beauty of how he does this book is that you feel like you're sitting and talking to Ron. It's very conversational. He tells a lot of stories of how he started getting interested in noise music, how he started his record store, how he started his record company, tours that he went on, people that he would talk to, releases that he had. It's such a great read. Ron seems like a hell of a guy. I can't recommend this enough, honestly. And it sort of goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning about this kind of academic way that experimental music and stuff can be talked about at times. You know, if we look at books like this and we look at, like, you know, The Art of Noise and noise music history, it gets a little, while that can be interesting, it has a tendency to get pretty fucking dry. So it's really refreshing to have something about that time and about this style of music that is like a conversation. So yeah, if you're curious about this kind of stuff, or if you know Ron Lessard, or you know Triple R or anything like that, or even if you don't and you're just a fan of experimental and noise music, I'd suggest grabbing this book. I'll put the links to KORM in the description of this video as well too, where you can get this. Highly recommended. So got a couple things. I went to, there's a place called Captain Collect-A-Buzz here in town. 420 on his channel. He had talked about them before. I've only been a couple of times. I think one of the last times 420 was talking about it on his channel, he said that he traded some stuff in and got a pretty good deal. So I had some books. Gore Vidal, look at this guy. Good evening. How are you doing? I had some books that I could trade in. There's some stuff that I have extras of where I'm holding on to them to give away, or just to kind of have doubles of things if I want to gift things to people. I usually start a box and there's some stuff in there for Rasa, for example. And sometimes it's hard to pass up on some of these books. So I took out some of the books and went and traded them in. He gave me $50 worth of trade, or $55 worth of trade, which was pretty damn good considering what I brought him. It was more than I was expecting. And he had some pretty great bins. A nice variety of stuff, obviously lots of superhero stuff, but there was some things like this, for example, Baker Street Graffiti, which I've been looking for a long time. I saw it's on, I just took it off my list from Lone Star, and I saw Lone Star had a copy of this for like $13 American. So to be able to trade in a stack of comics, this was, I think he had a price of a few bucks on it, maybe $3 or $4 on it. I can't even remember. So to get my hands on it as opposed to having to order away for it. So that was a really nice surprise. So what this is it compiles a bunch of stuff. There was the potential to have he was going to do a calendar with Baker Street Graffiti. He was going to contribute to like a swimsuit issue with some of the Baker Street Graffiti characters. And then there's 2 short stories that appeared in anthologies. I think maybe both of them appeared in what the hell was it called? Caliber Presents. Is that what that anthology was called? Sorry, Negative Burn. So it might have been either Caliber Presents or Negative Burn. I don't know where it was originally supposed to appear. And scanning, it doesn't really say, but really great. I've talked about Guy Davis and Baker Street Graffiti before. It's a series that if you like Guy Davis's art, I'd suggest checking it out, because you really see his art develop through this series. You see his art change. Swimsuit issues are always welcome. Yeah, I'll show you some of those there as well, Gore. So his art style really changes through the run. The run is actually, it was one of those books where I had read a few of the issues. It didn't catch me right away. I ended up selling or trading those and then getting more into Guy Davis later on and then rereading it. And I'm really glad that I revisited it. So that's what I would say, that if you haven't read it and you want to give it a shot, kind of ride out those first couple of issues, because they, in my opinion, they were a little hard to kind of get into. Once he gets the flow, though, it's a really rewarding story. And again, like, one of the best things is to see his art develop through this run. So here's some pages from the calendar that he was going to do. Couple more. I'll just kind of show you some. So this was great to sit down, and again, seeing stuff like this, it makes me want to reread the series. It makes me want to pull all those books out of the drawers and at least flip through them again. Yeah, he's really grown into one of my favorite artists. There's really he's made it to the top in that top 10 list, you know. And then another short story here at the back. And then finally, you've been teased long enough, Gore. So the other thing we get is we get some sketchbook designs of some of the characters as he was working out some of the characters. He does the same thing in the BPRD Hell on Earth books as well too. It's great that he loves sharing his sketchbook journey of kind of how these characters change and what his ideas were. So here's some swimsuit stuff here of the punk rockers, little side boob action there, and yeah, there you go. So, and then on the back cover as well too. So yeah, great, really fun little kind of opportunity to revisit that world. So that was a really, really great score. A couple of the other things that I found before we start going into what I've read. I hadn't heard of this one before. Alan Moore and Eddie Campbell, The Birth Call. I was talking to Colin about it, and he said I think he said that, pardon me, got some real indigestion going on here. I think he said there was a couple of these books, and I think I remember him saying that there was something music related that was going on with this as well. Let's just go to my Twitter and there's another one like it called Snakes and Ladders. Both of them have musical performances as well. You might be able to find those online. So I haven't done a search on YouTube yet, but I will be doing so once I sit down and actually read this. I haven't read it yet. It's on the pile to read hopefully this week. But I'd never seen this before. I'd never heard of this before. And again, the beauty of trade credit, man. You just, you know, throw stuff in your basket. A couple of issues of Dark Horse Presents. He had a small stack of them. These are the only two that I needed. Yeah, not much to say about this. I think everybody knows about Dark Horse Presents. So number 33 and issue number 40 there. I think he had this one listed for a measly, paltry $1 from slave labor called Neo Men. It looked intriguing. I know slave labor, so that was really why I picked it up, because of the slave labor graphics logo on it. I think slave labor, were they an offshoot of Caliber as well? I can never keep them straight. Caliber had so many offshoots. A couple of issues of Andrew Vack's Cross, issues number 3 and 4 of 6. I think I have another issue of this somewhere in the bins as well too. So again, cheap and trade credit. One that I'm kind of, thanks to the kayfabe guys, specifically Jim Rugg, Grips has been on my radar for a long time. The couple of times that I've seen Grips single issues out there, though, they're a little too expensive for me to want to kind of engage with the comics. So surprise, surprise, Greater Mercury Comics Collections Volume 1 that collects all of the Grips material. And I think it also does the first Grips appearance. It's the first Ron Lim story and the first Chris Silver story. We also have Tim Vigil doing some art in this as well. I haven't dug into this yet, but it is kind of an infamous title there. So I figured, why the hell not? We'll see how that pans out. And then from Cinebook, I was surprised to see this in his bin. Anything from Cinebook, I'm pretty much willing to give it a shot. This was Leo Aldebaran, The Catastrophe. So the other bonuses, this is book 1. It looks like they've got 3 books out in this series there, and then I guess there was an offshoot that had 2 books. The art didn't kind of blow me away. There's something about the coloring that didn't really sit so well with me, but I couldn't leave it in the bin. I had to kind of give it a shot. I'm very much willing to kind of dive into Cinebook stuff. It's rare also that you find this stuff here, so it feels a shame to leave it in the bins for someone else. What's Grips? Just a comic that Greater Mercury put out. It was one that Jim had talked about because I think he did some pinups that he was showing off in a kayfabe video at one point, and then Grips kind of came across their channel a few times when they would do kind of dollar bin comic hauls where they would find a bunch of stuff. But it was through that Jim in the channel that I heard about this. It probably would have passed me by, to be honest, but the way they would talk about it made it very intriguing. So, and then a couple of things getting into what I read, a couple of things that I also found from them or from that trade. Negative Burn, a Caliber anthology. I've only got a few of these issues, and they're mostly just chock filled with really great stuff, and this was no exception. This is such a good little anthology. Guys like Phil Hester is in here, Doug Wheeler's in here, Brian Boland's in here, Ken Meyer Jr. Then of course the cover by Kaluta. Joe Pruitt doing some writing. Joe Pruitt is also the editor of this as well. Great black and white stuff from, I think this is 93. Yeah, 1993 is when this issue came out. This is issue number 6 of Negative Burn. I don't know how many issues that it went. I want to say like 20 or 30 though. Really great. So some of these stories are continued throughout the anthology. So I don't have, I think the couple of issues that I have are from later on. So I don't have any of these early ones, or as many of these early ones anyway. Another one that I've got to kind of pull out of the drawers and have a look at. Written and drawn by David Lloyd in 1974. Copyright 1993 by David Lloyd, called Vixen. This was an absolute standout for the art. It's a vampire story. This guy's wife has been turned into a vampire, and she's now coming for him and offering him an opportunity to kind of be with her for eternity. I love the art style on this. It feels like it was drawn smaller and blown up. It's got something going on with it. 50 issues. Holy shit. Yeah, that's insane. 50 issues. So I was way off. 1993 to 1997. Negative Burn deserves more attention. Always happy when I stumble across a copy. Yeah, absolutely. Grips looks like the forthcoming resurrected Gwen Stacy as a Weapon X Gwenpool madness. Yeah. So this was so great. There's some energy happening here. It feels like it also feels a bit like Eternity Comics reprinting some old lost 50s or 60s comic that they didn't have the rights to. It has that kind of quality to it. But these last pages were the ones that really sold me on this story. I love this layout here. I really enjoyed this ending as he kind of comes to terms with the decision that he's made. She hasn't really given him a choice. Really, really solid little story. So if you see this issue of Negative Burn, issue number 6, don't sleep on it. We also get Elaine Lee doing some writing here. And who is the artist? The artist is Craig Hamilton, looking a lot like P. Craig Russell in this just 2-pager, which didn't... yeah, I rarely see it honestly, I don't see it that often either. It feels like one of those anthologies that people, they don't sell. I don't know what it is about it. Or it's banned in Texas. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So good stuff. Who's this one? Philip Hester, Canadian, doing a story here as well. This one called Conditioned. So, I mean, what else can I say about it? Just great. A sketchbook as well at the back from, sorry, I passed the page there. Andrew Robinson sketchbook here with some, or not sketchbook, but I guess that's what they call it, but it's more like completed pieces, a collection of completed pieces. So solid stuff. And the one that kind of blew me away, Gore Vidal is in the room. I've never seen this in person. I had it on a list again on my comic shop. I'm going to have to make sure that I go back. A Vortex Comics collection of the first 4 issues of Mr. X when it was done by the one and only, story by Gilbert Hernandez, Mario Hernandez, and Dean Motter, illustrated by Jaime Hernandez. I've read these before. You know that this is good. I know that this is good. It was so goddamn great to read this again. It's one of those books that I think grows on me more every time I read it. I think that these first 4 issues, as much as I enjoy the Seth stuff that comes after this, I think these first 4 issues are a real standout. There's so much. I mean, it starts off from page 1, man, with Mr. X poking his head out of the sewer. I mean, you're not going to get a better illustration than that. The other thing that kind of hit me with it this time too was the kind of Batman the Animated Series vibe that it had, not only on like the cityscape, but even like characters' faces. That feels like a character that could be right out of Batman Animated Series. This kind of stuff does as well too. It was so much fun to read this again. Luba makes an appearance in here, which I didn't see last time. I mean, look at this. They do such a wonderful job. It's such a wonderful story. Yeah, again, another one where I feel like I've just got to read this entire thing again. I've got to kind of dig into the rest of this volume. Yeah, here we go. There's Luba there making an appearance. Walter, this is Luba. She's come all the way from Palomar. So there you go, a little guest appearance there. Yeah, so glad I found this. Really surprised to see this tucked into the bins. One of the last things I expected to see. So yeah, goddamn great. Really, really excited about that one. 1 second here. My son is making shirts. He got a screen printing kit from a local art supply store. Part of his program is at the end of the year, he's in Red River College doing design. At the end of the year, they do everybody does some art project, and then they sell, whether it's prints, in this case, he's doing t-shirts, and they use that money for their graduation. So he's going through the process of screen printing some shirts by hand. So he was sending me some photos of what it's looking like. It's not done yet, so I will share it at some point for sure, and you can have a look as well. What else did I get from that shop? That was it, I think. The rest of the stuff. Oh, no, I got that one from somewhere else. Proxima Centauri, Feral Dalrymple. I said the last time when I talked about Robot Todd that I don't know why I don't have more of his books in my collection. I'm going to try my best to rectify that. A little Wes Craig pinup as well, too, on the back, which is kind of cool. Again, very much lost with this, even though this is issue 1 of one of 6, it says on the back here, from 2018. I feel like I've got a lot of catching up to do with his kind of world building, and his storytelling is unique in it. Sometimes feels like he's created these almost like graffiti pieces, like he's created these pieces, come to a point where, hey man, there's a thread that kind of goes through this and sort of has a story to kind of tie everything together. I don't know for a fact that that's what he does. This one kind of read like that to me, but goddamn, the art is beautiful. So yeah, that was a real fun read as well. And Damien, with you being here, yeah, there's a Ditko feel to those as well. I can see that for Mr. X. Yes, I can see the Ditko feel as well. I like those volumes. It's true. It grows with every new read. So much mystery. It makes you want more. Absolutely. There's a great issue of Mind Management illustrated by Dalrymple. That's right. Yes, because there was a bunch of mind management stuff that was done by other artists, wasn't there? So Damien had recommended this. So when I get recommendations, especially if I'm talking with Rasa or talking live with somebody, I'll open another window and just kind of make a note of it, do a search for it. And this one, the art that I saw online was really intriguing. So I picked this up today. I read it this afternoon. I got to say, man, that's a pretty goddamn solid first issue. I really enjoyed this. I'm going to keep up with this one. A lot of intrigue. There's a real interesting story of kind of getting back artifacts from museums that have been taken from people. Obviously, that's something that has notoriously happened. A lot of these museums have stuff that was kind of stolen from other countries. So this trio, I kind of got confused by the relationship. I thought they were 2 sisters and a brother. I guess they're not. The sisters are sisters, but I think I misunderstood the guy's part in the family. I don't know if it was kind of an extended family, because all of a sudden he's having sex with what I thought was his sister. I'm like, well, that can't be true then. I must have misunderstood something. So really good, though. I really like the style. Like I said, the story was intriguing enough that I'm really curious where it's going to go. So I'm going to stick with this one. So thank you very much. Shout out to Sleepy Reader for recommending this one for me. Yeah, there was a couple of other titles that he threw out as well, but I only have so much dollars in my pocket. Mask reminds me of the guests in Eyes Wide Shut. Yeah, it does. Yes. I was confused by the relationships too. One of the characters was kind of a servant apprentice, maybe. Yeah, possibly. I feel like I need to maybe reread that first half of it. And then speaking of stuff that I tried out, I don't know if you guys have heard of this, Afterlight Comics. So my shop does this 204 Comics, where I went today to pick up my pull list and buy 2 issues, give it 2 issues a try. He's really good at trying out independent companies, and at least trying out an issue 1 and seeing how it goes. He had a couple of titles from this Afterlight Comics, which I believe is based out of the UK. This one caught my mind because it felt like a bit of a Vacuum Decay clone to some degree. The interiors, not at all, but there was something about this cover that really jumped out at me, looking like Harry Nordlinger. This is going to be a 4-issue miniseries. The focus is on this psychiatrist and 3 of his patients who have mysteriously died, all due to sleep-related, I don't know if they use the word psychosis, disorders is what they use, exploring the experiences of sleep disorders. A psychologist is forced to revisit the haunting of 3 of his former patients. So that sounded intriguing. Honestly, it was pretty damn great. It didn't go as far as kind of like Vacuum Decay would go, but it was a really solid little story. And what more do you want? By the end of it, I wanted to know what was coming up next. So I feel like that's reason enough to kind of continue with it. So this first one is about a patient that was experiencing sleep paralysis. I'll do the credits in 1 second. She was experiencing sleep paralysis, and she's died from an overdose of sleeping pills that were prescribed to her by this doctor. So the basic premise is it's this cop coming in and kind of questioning, wanting to talk to him about these 3 patients of his, and just kind of get a sense. I won't show you those pages because those will be a bit spoiler-ish. I won't show you those ones either. Yeah, okay, so maybe I'll just stick to the first couple of pages. So there's the credits there. Adrian Manuel Garcia, writer, lettering, and colors, Joseph Oliveira, and then cover by Robert Geronimo. So yeah, going to be a 4-issue miniseries. He had another title from Afterlight Comics as well on the shelf. I can't remember what it was called right now. I may, next time I go back, if he's still got a copy, I may pick that one up too, because this kind of caught my attention. I had a quick look through their website as well too. So it looked pretty great. And it's just afterlightcomics.com if you want to check it out. The other thing I picked up today, this was on my pull list. The other one that was on my pull list was Dust to Dust, issue number 3, but I haven't read it yet. I'm going to try to sit down with it tonight. And then it's Seasons issue number 2, or The Seasons issue number 2. Gorgeous cover. This issue caught my attention. So this is Rick Remender and then Paul Azaceta, Matthias Lopez on colors, Russ Wooten on letters. This one caught my attention way more than the first issue did. Honestly, the first issue didn't do too much for me. We were following one of the Season's sisters as she was chasing down a letter. Autumn, I think, was who it was, wasn't it? I can't keep track of who was who. No, because I think that's Autumn. Anyway, so this one kind of opens up the world. We meet all of the sisters now. So now in this issue, we've had a full introduction to all 4 of the sisters, and we get a little bit of insight into who they are. We get a little bit of mystery with right off the top of the issue with one of the sisters. And then it just kind of jumps back into the world building and kind of what their relationships are. We get a nice taste of all the different personalities. So this was good. This was a really solid read. I really like the art as well too. There's something about this style that speaks to me. I don't know who it reminds me of off the top of my head, especially with the coloring. I feel there's almost like a Smallwood-ish type of, this kind of like blocky coloring where it's sort of sharp lines and shapes for blocks of color, as opposed to worrying about really blending it in with the character and following those lines and stuff. There's something about that coloring that reminds me a little bit of like Human Target and stuff, Smallwood stuff. So yeah, solid issue. I'm on board for this one now for sure. I think Grommets finally comes out in a week or 2 here, the final issue of that one. That's the Remender book that I'm most excited about. I need to see how that sucker ends. It's been a long time. I really started to get into Seasons with issue 2, and the art really sucked me in this time. Yeah, more so than the first issue. There was something, I just didn't like the premise of the first issue. I didn't like that following the letter through town. I thought it was a little hokey. Yeah, it didn't really give you too much. The last couple of pages gave you a little taste of maybe what was to come, but I'm not so crazy about kind of this circus kind of character being the villain potentially. But I'm willing to keep going with it for sure. And then this last one, or these last 2 actually, are thanks to LahRasa. LahRasa talked about TMNT issue number 6, the Jason Aaron story, and she talked pretty highly of it. And while she was talking and showing off art, it really got my attention and made me think, well, maybe I'm missing out. I wasn't a big fan of the first 4 issues. There was moments I really liked. I really liked issue number 1, and I think I liked issue number 4 the most. But there wasn't much overall with those first 4 like I thought there would be. I guess I had a bit more higher hopes for Jason Aaron, but holy shit, did these 2 issues really ramp it up. These were really good. I would say that these kind of knock the first 4 issues out of the park to some degree. It's another one of those stories of they really should have just done a single issue to introduce us, maybe 2 issues. I understand why they did 4 single issues. You had to focus on each of the characters. You got to get that money in somehow to keep your company going. I understand all that, but it's unfortunate that they had to drag it out. Yeah, April is back in this one, or in issue number 6 anyway. Or maybe it's at the end of issue number 5. Either way, these were really, really good. So I'm going to keep picking these up. I won't say too much more than that for now. I want to wait and we'll talk about them with Rasa, but I'm very glad I dove back in. If you do pick these up, I mean, if you haven't read the first 4 issues, I think, unfortunately, you kind of have to, even if you just scan through them. Don't let those first 4 issues, though, sway you from kind of keep going on this. Obviously, this is with the precursor of you like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and you want to read some more stories about 4 fucking mutated turtles. But yeah, those were really, really solid. That is all that I read. Let me just check back here. Yeah, no, that is it. And like I said, 400 pages into Kamui, loving it. If you don't know Kamui, honestly, give it a shot. It's a goddamn great story. And I'm looking forward to kind of diving into that one with Rasa next weekend. Hopefully, I'm assuming she's finished it by now. She's had it about a month longer than I've had it. Maybe even 5 weeks longer than I've had it. So thanks very much, everybody. Gore, good to see you, man. Damien, thank you very much. And then the other lurkers that are hiding out in the background, thanks very much for tuning in. Check the links afterwards in the description. I'll try to link up to things that we've spoken about in this off the top of the video. Yeah, that's it. Right on. Later.